future of talk is here. Power 102 Digital.
Indeed, it is right here at Power 102 Digital Thursday to be exact. And with me on the set is Fareed Ali. Good afternoon, Fareed. He has a special guest. I'll allow Fareed to introduce his guest. Hard Talk starts now.
Good afternoon, David, and good afternoon to all listeners out there. It's wonderful to be in touch with the public again, and I know that we had a religious break yesterday. So today we back on stream and having a discussion with Dr. Ryan Cupido. For the listening public, what we did in the past is, and I'm referring specifically to our last show last Wednesday, is I brought and had as a special guest the head of the Diabetes Association of Trinidad and Tobago, the president, that is Dr. Andrew Danu. And we began a discussion about diabetes, and as some of us commonly refer to it out there, the lay person, that is, we call it sugar. Dr. Cupido, thank you so much for your presence and your warmth in making yourself available. I know you doctors have heavy schedules, and to give us this time is something that we cherish, and we appreciate the fact that you've taken the opportunity to share your wisdom and expertise with not just us at the network here, but with the general public. Thank you again.
Yes, thank you. I'm very happy to be here and to share whatever knowledge I have with the general public at large.
Well, maybe you can start by highlighting the fact, and these statistics blow my mind sometimes. Our population, in my understanding, is just about 1.4 million. And I was reading in one of the editorials that in Trinidad, there are 180,000 people with diabetes, while around 60,000 to 80,000 people might be diabetic. I could only infer from that statistic that it's confirmed 180,000 people plus may be afflicted with the, if I may say, disease. You would correct me otherwise. And another 60 to 80,000, maybe just 60 to 80,000, maybe persons who may be undiagnosed, meaning you're walking around with that illness or suffering from the condition that it is. But, we live such a happy-go-lucky life here. It's only when the symptoms present itself in a manner that causes concern that we go to a doctor, perhaps get advice to get ourselves tested, and only discover serendipitously, out of the blue, like manna falling from heaven, that there's something wrong. But what would have attracted us to that underlying position, meaning that we may be just diabetic and suffering from the effects of it, or the protracted and prolonged effects of it, it's the fact that we are demonstrating some symptoms. The reason why it is I wanted to angle the discussion in the way that we are today is that we have a lot of it's a West Indian thing. Men on the whole, hold very dear to them their potency, if we may put it that way. And in the same way that diabetes, and it may have an effect in terms of it can lead to heart disease and other conditions. The issue of potency, I would imagine, tied to that would be just maybe erectile dysfunction and that sort of thing. Could find its roots in our diet and how we treat ourselves, and perhaps diabetes getting to the level where it's unmanaged. But enough talk from me. I know that you're the expert. When we look at statistics such as this, what is your view exactly? What is the connection between the condition that is we as human beings unable to process the levels of sugar that we take into our system and the condition diabetes? How do we transition from one point to the next and get to that point where we are turned diabetic?
Right. Okay. So that you made a lot of excellent points in your discussion just now. So I'll start that by saying, just by being Indo-Trinidadian, you're already at a risk for diabetes. Right? By being Afro-Trinidadian, you're already at a risk for diabetes. That's just genetics. All right. I'm not being racial or anything like that, That is just how it is. But there are things where we could try to stop that. And when you go along the lines of the diet and the exercise and everything, just like what you said, the diabetic person, generally speaking, has a higher blood sugar than is normal, right?
Yeah.
The diabetic person does not eat or tolerate sugars like a normal person. And when that sugars go very, very high, it affects a lot of systems in the body, not just the heart, not just affect the kidneys, not just affect the brain. It also affects, what our topic is today, the organs, right?
Yeah.
And that's where we're going to go into a little bit of that.
It, the issue and the topic of diabetes has been at the front burner in the editorials in the newspapers. It is something that the Minister of Health has been stressing on for some time. PAHO have had so many directives and in this space that is social media, in the space that is mainstream media, the public is encouraged to eat a balanced diet, eat in a particular way, watch your sugar levels. And it's particularly so much so that I read recently the Minister of Health challenged the fast food outlets to provide a meal that is healthy or that doesn't prevent a challenge the person partaking or purchasing, where they are more at risk because of the not just the choice of meal, but the frequency of the meal and the execution of it. So often it is said that the condiments that are being served, I'm not knocking any company here, I'm just saying that we've been told that ketchup and mustard and garlic sauce, mayonnaise, these are the things that make Trini food what they are. When we travel, what we miss, and we talk about Trini food, is more sauces than anything else. We miss that little process, something that makes it, gives it that
And I do agree with you to a certain extent, because to be honest, if you look at the nutrition label on a bottle of ketchup, you will see that sugar is probably the second or third ingredient on that label, right? After tomatoes, if it even has tomatoes on it, right? Now, a lot of things that people does not know is that when you look at an ingredient list on a particular item, it has to be shown in order of most in the item to least in the item. So if you see water first, that's water the most. If you see tomatoes first, that's tomatoes in the first. If you see sodium benzoate first, that's sodium benzoate first, right? It has to be done by law, right? And a lot of these people, they always think, well, all right, the sources are doing, a lot of good things, but they don't know what they're putting into their body. And I'm not a great fan, even though KFC sauces taste good, as you mentioned KFC, but even the other outlets, um, even though those other outlets, their stuff tastes really, really good, you need to know exactly what you're putting into your body. And that is very, very important to me.
But as a doctor, um, how do you, or in what way would you advise, and we're speaking in this instance to the listening public, how do they approach the use of fast food when it is, when you buy a drink that is perhaps, those juices that they sell around the savannah or juices that are sold in different spaces? how does the public approach purchasing these items and measuring for themselves the intake
Right.
of sugar?
Yeah, so that is actually a very good point. And you will find that the people who are selling the fresh juices around the savannah, you would think that because it's fresh juices, fresh squeeze, fresh this, fresh that, that it's healthier. However, the amount of sugar that they put in those juices is a whole lot more than if you were to do that by yourself. So, what I actually would recommend is if you want orange juice, get the oranges yourself, right? Get the grapefruits yourself. Get whatever it is yourself. Get the apples. Get something. I'm pretty sure most Trinidadian households has an austerizer. That's a blender, right? Austerizer blender. Blend it up, mix it with water. If you want to add a little bit of sugar, you could control the amount of sugar that you put in it, but you're not putting your hands in anybody else's hands.
All right. Let's approach this from a simple point of view. If it is I have to make, I'm talking about from my personal position, right? I can only talk for me. I can't talk for what the public does. One could only presume that their actions can't be much of my actions. If I'm making coffee in mornings, I would put 2 tablespoons of sugar. Simply because I like my coffee tasting a certain way. I'm not mindful of whether this is going to damage me. I'm concerned about how good this thing is going to taste first thing in the morning, so I could start my day and get the kickstart and jumpstart I need to survive until lunchtime for my next dose of sugar.
Right. So it's not the coffee, it's the sugar.
Right, but I'm saying from a practical point of view, I'm not weighing sugar in the office. When I'm at office and we don't weigh sugar, we take it by tablespoons. I would imagine, teaspoons, sorry. I would imagine that when the public is putting sugar and adding sugar and mixing their drinks, as we say. So when you mentioned that a lot of sugar goes into these juices that are put on sale around, I'm using the Savannah as a frame of reference, right?
Yeah, but just in general, yeah.
We don't have any control over what they do. We buy and we sample from different persons until we find a vendor that somehow he manages to put together a cocktail that enhances the taste in our mouth, or that satisfying to our palate.
Right.
I'm saying from a very practical point of view, people who mix a mug of juice out there in their homes on a day-to-day basis or professionally at their offices to last the day, they may not be checking what you check or weighing what. How is there a practical formula? That's basically what I'm getting at. Is there a formula or there's a way that the public can measure the amount of sugar? And I'm using the word measure very loosely in terms of how much sugar do we need to take per day through food and drink to say, all right, we've gotten to that limit. It's 3 o'clock. I've had my intake of sugar, so it's water for the rest of the evening.
Right. So the be all and end all is that it's almost impossible for one to really see how much sugar they've gotten throughout the day, unless you are really, really, really serious in counting your calories and counting your sugars and everything like that. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of TikTok people that do these kind of things, right? Because TikTok is awesomely insane these days. But I think that you shouldn't go to that extreme. I think that if you have a pretty balanced diet, a little bit of extra sugar probably not going to do too much to you, right? You just need to have everything in a particular balance.
Someone like myself, I swim almost every evening into the evening. That's just my way of de-stressing. By the end of the day, I'm so stressed out that to me swimming takes a lot out of me and puts my mind at rest. So my logic is, and my very skewed logic, because you're the doctor, I'm not. My skewed logic is maybe if I abuse a little during the day, I could work it back out in an extra hour of swimming in the night. So as unreasonable as that may sound, I can reason within myself that that works for me. That doesn't mean to say it's correct. What is the logic in exercise and marrying exercise with your food intake? So I have friends who tell me, well, boy, I just eat hard and just exercise hard. And in their minds, that working. For the persons out there who listening to us, who believe that you eat bad and you work out hard and everything will be all right. Does that make any sense? Is it impossible to develop a balance through exercise to countervail the abuse that we embark on through food?
Right. So that's an excellent point that you just brought up. And that would lead to something called like carb loading, right? Which is you eat a lot of carbs and you exercise it out. And you say that you want to exercise out what you just eat. However, the body does not work that way, right? The body works by storing your carbs first. So if you eat something at 10 o'clock this morning, you're not going to burn it out by 2 o'clock this evening, right? You need to ensure that if you want to burn out the carbohydrates that you ate at 10 o'clock this morning, you continue along your diet and exercise plan. It's not just a one-day thing. So you might eat something 10 o'clock this morning, that might be burned off probably like quite next week Sunday, right? And that is how the body works, because the body doesn't exactly process stuff now for now. It tends to store. That's just how mammals work and bodies work.
Wow. So your example is you can eat something today and burn it out next Sunday. So it can be actually stored in what, fat or there for a 4 or 5 day period until our metabolism gets to working it out.
Okay, so for that, we would have to go back to basic sciences. When you eat something, like let's say you eat, what's the basic starch that we have in Trinidad? Aloo or rice, right? So aloo or rice?
Doubles.
Aloo or rice, not doubles. So we eat starch, and we have something called salivary amylase, which is an enzyme which starts to break that down even in our mouth. Then it goes down into the stomach. The stomach kind of grinds it up in a way, and then it goes into the small intestine. When it's in the small intestine, the pancreas releases something called amylase as well. And amylase breaks down all of those starches, right? Which is in the potato or the rice, because those are very starch heavy foods. And then they get broken down into something called glucose, which is what diabetics cannot handle, or they get broken down into multi-chains and everything like that. Now, the liver is the organ that will distribute it into the muscles, the other organs, everything like that. If you are diabetic, these things don't really happen properly. These breakdowns don't happen properly, and all of a sudden, your sugar spikes. And it just happens. If you're not diabetic, it stores into the muscles and everything like that, and you have energy, you have power, everything like that. That's why if you break down a protein, it breaks down into other proteins, but not carbohydrates. And the liver now have to deliver proteins to the muscles instead of carbohydrates. So that's why the thinking is that if you want to build muscle, eat protein, not carbohydrates. The medical field is kind of divided on that right now. It's neither here nor there, but that's where it is.
Is it that you're suggesting that, and I would imagine that for the listening public, persons who can't afford to have discussions with a registered dietitian, is it that you're recommending that uh, that individuals find a means and a mechanism to advise themselves as to what they should consume and in what quantities and in what form and fashion?
Right. So I would never ever advise anybody to go on their own diet plans, all right? Because we have a very good health system in Trinidad. Even though a lot of people say that the health system is terrible, we have registered dietitians in every single health center in Trinidad and Tobago. And if these people would want to join any one of the health centers or any one of the medical clinics in any one of the hospitals, they will be able to see a dietitian and will be able to get dietary advice.
Wow. So you're saying that this is available free of charge at the registered health centers?
Yes, at any registered health center or at one of the hospital clinics, there are dietitians that are available.
Now, you did mention that a diabetics, one of the challenges they have would be how to manage the sugar levels in their bodies. That somebody who's not diabetic would be able to treat with their body, would be able to treat with the sugars that um, they consume, the individual consume differently. If it is you're already compromised, meaning that you've been diagnosed diabetic, um,
Right, a
what
diabetic long time.
what would be your guidance as to how that individual should start treating with themselves in this moment? Let us say this, you've gotten that news, as we put it in Trinidad. We're getting news this morning.
Right. So, one of the first things that I would say is we would want to measure something called your HbA1c, right? Which is a diabetic measure, basically. And our machines go from like about 4 to about 16, somewhere around there. Like if you go above 16, you're real bad, right? Um, I have seen patients who have been like they broke the machine basically, and they got down to our target. Our target for a diabetic person is 7, and they got down to less than 7. And the very number one thing is very free, and it's very normal: exercise. All you need to do is walk. It doesn't matter whether you run, whether you jog, whether you walk. You just need to make a minimum, and I'm going to say it on air, 7,000 steps every single day. 7,000 steps. All right. A lot of us Trinidadians have our cell phones with us. Download an app that will count your steps. Put it in your pocket. Walk with you. 7,000 steps. If you do not make 7,000 steps every day, you increase your risk of heart disease by about 50%. If you are within the age of about 35 to about 50.
But that's interesting. When we have, no, we've touched on that aspect of it. I don't mean to digress, but perhaps we can just get into this area. Just touch on it. We hear persons are born with diabetes, where it's you have it since childhood. My own little readings from the editorials that I follow, um, there's type 1 and there's type 2. I believe what we were discussing more or less would have been some of the dynamics of type 2. Could you share with us, you know, what is type 1 diabetes, and how does one approach that?
Right. Okay. So, type 1 diabetes, and I will just make a little bit of a mention because I'm a cricket fanatic. Haley Matthews, the captain of the West Indies women's cricket team, she is a type 1 diabetic. She found out she was type 1 diabetic when she was probably about 11 years old. She wears a sensor on her arm every match, right? Um, so type 1 diabetes is totally genetic. You have no control over that. You just have no control over your sugar. You need insulin. That means that your pancreas is just not working whatsoever. And you need insulin because your pancreas creates insulin. But because your pancreas isn't working, you require extra insulin. Now, there's a lot of ways to deliver that insulin, and there's a lot of ways to check how your sugars are going throughout the day. And currently, the best option is a continuous glucose monitor. It's only recommended for people who have to check their glucose levels more than about 4 times a day, or people who have to inject their cells with insulin more than 3 times a day. But it is something type 1 diabetes, they range from I don't know if you see in this high low high low high low high low, they go all over, right? And it's very, very dangerous, especially if it's the genetic type of type 1 diabetes. This isn't the lifestyle type of diabetes.
I had gone to school, secondary school, with a few persons who told me that they were diabetic, and they always had a something sweet on them. They said that when they feel that their body is, they actually said it's a feeling that you feel like, so you start sucking a sweetie, or
Yes.
you drink something sugary, and so they manage this thing in their mind's eye, and having dealt with it in, on a day-to-day basis, they knew how to self-medicate. That's just my expression.
Yeah, and you could imagine in high school at 14, 15, 16 years old, these individuals had to manage that they were knowing when their sugar was going low and they had was to like take a denament or something, that they needed that sugar. It was obviously very, very scary for them.
But
And I mean, you all didn't know that, but it was very scary for them, eh?
yeah, the thing is, I find, and this is again, I'm saying this purely from a lay perspective. When I read about the literature now in my adult life, I take it far more seriously now than I would when I was in my teenage years. Somehow in my mind's eye, the body will balance itself out. I'm a fairly active person. I play football and cricket. I do what I'm supposed to do. I eat at those. There's some people out there who would say, and this is what I'm getting to. They say, well, it's not that I eat the wrong thing, it's that I don't eat at all, or I eat infrequently. We work. Some human beings, we wake up. You're a professional. You get up. You drink some coffee. You think about food after lunch, and then you eat something, and you probably eat something heavy. I would imagine most times heavy for us is something with a lot of carbohydrates, potato salad,
Correct.
KFC, fast food, and you figure, well, a good day until probably about 4 or 5 o'clock, and you eat three doubles, and people live like that all day. I mean, I don't think I'm speaking for the public, but I have friends, and if if it's anything, people live like that. I have friends who they measure themselves in those doses, and they say, I working hard, and the 16 hours a day I working, and I do what I do to keep up. How would you advise someone who lives like that? Because, like I said, I'm of the mistaken belief, if I am, that there are people out there who operate on those levels. It's not, they say we don't eat the wrong thing, we just don't eat, and when we do eat, we just eat hard and work hard.
Right. So there's something called intermittent fasting, which I'm pretty sure you might be familiar with. Correct?
Yes. Yes.
Right. So intermittent fasting basically means that you don't eat anything for, I don't know, about 16 hours and then you eat. Right. And then 16 hours you don't eat and then you eat again and stuff like that. Right. Now, that actually, uh, up until a couple months ago, was actually the only proven thing for weight loss.
Right.
Right. Now, there's a couple studies that are coming out that are saying it's not proven, but those studies aren't actually proper studies. So we don't know if those studies are actually legitimate or not. What I would say is if your body feels hungry, eat. You're not going to eat a whole pizza. You're not going to eat five doubles. Eat. Just eat what your body wants. Because at the end of the day, hunger is different from appetite. All right. And a lot of people make a bad sort of difference between that, right? Hunger is painful. Appetite is your desire to eat. Hunger is actually painful. Hunger is when your stomach is cramping on yourself. Appetite is when you want to do, you want to eat. And a lot of Trinidadians, we are so blessed in Trinidad and Tobago that a lot of people aren't actually hungry. They just have an appetite. Right? You could always say that I'm wrong or something, but I believe that.
So is it wrong in the example I just gave you there? Is it wrong? I'm inferring. I my misunderstanding, if I'm wrong, would be along the lines of it's nothing is wrong with eating when you're in the mood to eat. Just eat how much it takes to keep you to satisfy that urge.
Right. So what I say is eat until you're satisfied, but not until you're full.
I can understand that. When I'm working, I get to a point where I recognize in my mind's eye that I'm forcing it now. The next
Yeah.
food for the
Yeah.
food. I'm really not interested. I'm just trying to
And
eat
then you're
now.
not looking forward, because if you eat breakfast until you're full, you're not looking forward to lunch. If you're not, eating lunch until you're not looking forward to dinner and these kind of things. Right? You need to look forward to your next meal, because we are so blessed in Trinidad and Tobago that we have such an abundance of crops. We have such an abundance of everything that nobody in Trinidad should ever starve.
One of the concerns that we have is the loss of limbs, the the inability to exist and to subsist in the way that we've grown accustomed to through the years. Let me say the same thing in another way. When a man begins to feel, loss of energy, loss of appetite, when a man suffers in such a way that he realizes that I can't
Go there.
yeah. To put it very rawly, West Indian men like Trinidadian men, um, they like the idea that
They could perform.
perform sexually, they can perform in a relationship in a manner that has there is no interruption, there is nothing that age debars them from.
Right.
But we hear that diabetes can have an effect on a man's potency. It can have an effect in terms of erectile dysfunction. How does diabetes manifest itself? Where does it take us? How does it take us in that direction? Because what you're describing is something so manageable, but then it becomes so difficult when it starts affecting us in other ways.
Right. So, like I said, I mean, diabetes is something that is so, I would say, endemic not a pandemic, but endemic to our Caribbean culture, especially Trinidadians. And we could actually reverse diabetes. Now, we cannot cure diabetes because a cure means you will never need to take a medication again. But we could reverse diabetes, meaning you do not have the condition, but you still need to take the medication. And when you have diabetes, yes, it can affect function. And the first function is mentally. All right. So let me just go into, I have my laptop here. All right. Let me just go into everything. Right. So a lot of men, like I said before, they're uncomfortable with discussing their issues with their doctor. Right. Because which man will want to say, well, doc, I mean, it can't go up, it can't do this, it can't do that. But that means it's often very, very underreported. The thing is if it's underreported, it's undertreated. And if it's underreported and undertreated, it leads to what we call in medicine a vicious cycle. Because it's underreported, it's undertreated, underreported, undertreated, and then that just you're spinning top in mud, you know? So we need these patients to come forward to us and tell us doctors that, hey, again, something. And then there are lots of doctors, both men and women, and actually men, there was a study that was done, and actually men are actually less likely to ask about it. That medical practitioners, men practitioners, not very comfortable with bringing up the topic of dysfunction unless the patient themselves specifically ask it. And this is a quality of life thing. This is something that, I mean, means something to these patients, right? Because most men, right, most men and most women will have some sort of dysfunction at some point in time in their lives. Whether you have diabetes, whether you do have diabetes, you're going to have a little bit of dysfunction, right? But if you have diabetes, you're at a higher risk, and you're at a higher risk earlier. If it is that you have diabetes, you're at a higher risk of problems happening. And what is these problems? Problems, right? Now we on a evening show. Not too sure, sir, exactly what kind of terms I could put on the show.
We are online, so you can put whatever terms you want.
All right. So the terms for sexual dysfunction, it's defined for men, right? It's the inability to achieve or maintain an erection. It's the inability to ejaculate. It's the loss of the sexual drive, which in layman's terms also is the libido, which is the drive. You want to, one she. Right? That is why I asked before, sir.
Tell me something, Doc. Sometimes there are guys who, like you say, are very shy and would not like to discuss it because of that machismo kind of way.
Right. They don't want to talk to their doctor about that.
No, not even the best friend. So
Right.
they try to supplement. Where does supplements, or where do supplements, what part does that play?
Right. So I'll get to that at the end of my talk.
Okay, okay.
All right.
Yes, yes.
But their supplements have no place either way.
Okay, and diabetes, I have learned that diabetes is like a, a, a sauce a place where a lot of things could
Yeah. If
develop.
if if you was to have sugar, try and reverse your sugar as soon as possible, basically. And we could reverse sugar. So it's no longer the death sentence that it was back in the day.
Yeah.
We could reverse that sugar. Right? So basically, right, going back into our discussion, what happens when a guy gets stimulated, as it would, right? I mean, like erections, right? So an erection happens when you have physical or a mental stimulus. And what happens is it causes a reflexes. You ever had a visit by the doctor and the doctor tap your knee, or you see like Flintstones or some kind of thing and the doctor tap your knee and he kick away the doctor? Right. That is a reflex, right? It's a reflex action and it increases blood flow to the organs. You do not control it. It just happens. Right? And they have a lot of different factors that affect this. They have nerves, they have hormone levels, they have even certain medications that could possibly affect this. And this is actually, the scientists have been studying this, right? Like doctors and biologists and all these different people have been studying this. And they think that this might be the cause of the erection that you have early in the morning. So a lot of guys, they wake up and they have what we call, like, morning wood, right? Or to put it very, very blatantly, I know we in the evening drive, but a cock stand in the morning. When you wake up with that in the morning, right? That is possibly because you didn't get any kind of psychological thing, right? You might not know wet dream. That is what you do, right? No physical, no mental stimulation, but that is what happened, right? And that is just because they think it might be the nerves, it might be the hormones. When it is you actually decide that hopefully you get married, right? I don't advocate before marriage. So hopefully you get married and you organize yourself. It also requires physical and mental stimulation. That is the one that you decide you want for the rest of your life. So it's multifactorial. You have hormones, you have nerves, you have muscles, you have all kind of positions, everything like that. Right? But here come the big bad diabetes. Bad diabetes. Diabetes come now and your sugar high. Diabetes, this mess up blood vessels. And diabetes is mess up small blood vessels and big blood vessels. And diabetes could also affect the nerves. And then here what? The same person who our coordinator was talking to me about. Young person, you don't think that going to lead to psychological problems? That is obviously going to lead to psychological problems. Oh gosh, I'm so young. I have diabetes. I have this. I have that. I this. I that. I that. Right? So you have small vessel problems, big blood vessel problems. You have your mind already going, oh gosh, I about 32 years old and I have sugar. Things not going to happen. In terms of how diabetes could affect you, you have these small blood vessels in your eyes, right? This is why a lot of people who now have to go and renew their driver's license, they mightn't needed to wear glasses beforehand. Now they need to wear glasses because they are sugar, right? And that's why they need to check the kidneys and thing every year. Big blood vessels. almost everybody in Trinidad knows somebody who had a stroke. Diabetes make blood vessel very, very tight, and pressure is bust pipe, right? Almost somebody does know who, as the person just now, almost lose their limb. I mean, come on. It's real difficult to go with our 1 foot in Trinidad, because Trinidad is not very, very disability oriented, right? And then the most important thing is nerves. The nerves could include every single nerve in the body, and this includes the nerves supplying the organs. Yeah, right? Blaze and JW and them, they say the organ, but no, it will organize that too, right? And then it can't stand up no more and dies it, right? And men with diabetes are 3 times more likely to have some sort of dysfunction, and it's multifactorial, just like what I said before. And the risk increases the longer you have diabetes. So if it is that you had problems with dysfunction now, and you now get diagnosed with diabetes and you're 35 years old, we could sort you out. If you're about 60 years old and things was bad a long time, we probably will have a little bit of a harder time doing that. So let's see how we could approach this though, right? You have to remember that a lot of people, they have a lot of comorbidities. So a lot of Trinidadians, they're not just diabetic. They have pressure, they have sugar, they have cholesterol, they have overweight, they have this, they have that, they just smoke, they just drink, they do all kind of thing. Right? All right, Farid, do you have anything to add?
I'm listening. I'm listening. I don't want to add. I'm listening.
All right. Yeah, because a lot of our patients, they're not just, you're not just diabetic. You have so much more. Because these people, I mean, they grew up in the old school, you know, so you take a little smoke if the weather cool, you know, you take a little drink to cool, throw away the cold, you do all kind of thing, right? But that leads to heart problems, that leads to overweight, that leads to high blood pressure, that leads to high cholesterol, and then these people not getting younger. And I mean, by the average, basically, the average 50-year-old Trinidadian right now, right, apart from the Gen Z and all them people who on TikTok and thing, is an overweight, diabetic, hypertensive, high cholesterol smoker. Right? And that is not me speaking. That is actually something that I saw a couple of years ago. And unfortunately, they put a certain politician as the picture. I'm not going to say who it is, but yeah. All right. So that's what it was. Right. And I mean, it was true, because you can't have that. You cannot have that. You need to be able to use the free things. And in Trinidad, the freer you run, the better it is. Right? We're going to talk about cardiovascular disease. Cardiovascular disease and diabetes. And diabetes is actually an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease. So if you never thought you had heart problem, just because you have sugar, you have a heart problem too. And you know why? Because dysfunction, if you can't stand up in the morning, it could actually preclude a heart attack or a stroke by 2 to 5 years in some patients. And the reason for that is because when you have sugar, They just have them little plaque. You see them little plaque that they say in the artery and you need to get a stent or you need bypass and all kind of thing. Yeah, it could go down in little man too. Right? And them little man smaller than in the heart. And you cannot stand up in the morning. And it is related to your diabetes and your cholesterol levels. And your pressure often very, very high. So what has happened? 5 o'clock in the morning, you're not exactly hard anymore. And that's what's happened. 5 o'clock in the morning, you lose that hardness. And then you're saying, but hey, I used to be hard in the morning. How come I'm not hard no more? Guess what? You're going to get a heart attack in about 2 years. We going good so far, mister?
We going good. We going good. I want to hear the next part of it.
All right. So then we come into the nerves now. The nerves that lead to down there. If it is that we getting these kind of things inside the blood vessels, now nerves is need a blood supply too. And if you cannot get a proper blood supply to the nerves, obviously the nerves going to dead. All of us, all of us what gen we is? Gen Z or something? I was born in 1987, right? So Gen Z, right? We always tie the rubber band on we hand and try to see how much we could do, right? And then the hand start to get a little numb, and we take off the rubber band. But if you do that continuously, which is what diabetes does to your blood vessels and to your nerves, if you lose that blood supply, you lose that function and you lose the sensation. So you might be, the young lady or young man, or I mean, well, we in Gen Alpha these days, so the alternate or whatever, they could be enjoying themselves, but you ain't enjoying yourself because you can't feel nothing because you don't have that reflex action. You lose all that sensation. Your nerves just going through just because of diabetes. Nerves need a blood supply, and the diabetes kill that blood supply. And a big part of that is due to weight and activity. And like I said, the faster you run, the freer it is. Because if you increase fat levels in your body, fat actually does produce chemicals that lead to a lot of impaired function in the body. The body don't like fat, right? Now, we will say, well, the fatty, the this, the bubble ups, the whatever, all right? But you have to understand there's a difference between being very, very skinny, being a normal weight, and being, too over that, right? You have to be in the normal weight, right? And a lot of people will say that, oh gosh, I can't lose weight. It is giving me inflammation, right? But inflammation, now Trinidadians and Tobagonians, especially Tobagonians, they just talk about inflammation. Inflammation is not something bad. Inflammation is, medically speaking, a sort of heightened awareness in the body. It isn't actually the body going and doing something bad to itself or something. It means that, hey, I don't need this in you and I need to get it out, right? And increased levels of fat, right? This big fat, especially fat around the belly area, it leads to lower testosterone levels. And guess what? You know what leads to lower testosterone levels as well? Diabetes. And there was a study, and I mean, all of these things that I say, there was a study. I suppose if you all want references or anything, you all could always link back to those who hosting, and I could always organize. But yeah, there's a study that shows up to 40% of people had low testosterone levels who were diabetic, who were overweight. So how do you approach that? Just lose the fat. Lose the fat, you lose the low testosterone levels, your body comes up, right? That's why in my practice where I work, we don't think about weight, we think about waist, as in WAIST. We think about losing 2 inches off your waist. And then if you lose 2 inches, we think about, all right, lose 2 more inches, lose this, lose that. Because there will come a time where your weight is going to be steady, but you're going to find that you're going to be putting on muscle. And sometimes your weight might actually increase. And that's why we say 7,000 steps every day, right? I'm not a. Just now. Hold on.
We have time. Time is not the issue. We on up
No,
until
no, no, no. It's not. It's not time. But I'm not a advocate of anything. But just get a watch or a tracker or some kind of thing that could count your steps, even if it's just your phone. Like even if it's just like parking up far in the car park and walking in. Even if it's just like instead of using the elevator, walk up the steps. Those kind of things, they help, because those 100, 200 steps, those, those things, they add up at the end of the day. And you will find that 7,000 steps, by the way, is about 5 kilometers every day. And a lot of Trinidadians in particular think that 5 kilometers is very, very, very much. But it isn't. It actually isn't. You could do 5 kilometers in your daily life. Easy like that. Walk up the steps, park up far. When you go in Grand Bazaar or Trin City or South Park or Port of Spain or wherever, just park up far and walk. Walk up Charlotte Street. Right? I will tell you from the bus route to where I work in Medical Associates Hospital, that is, that's about 1,700 steps at least. Easy. And that's like a quarter of my thing done right there. I just had to do that up and down. Right? But I mean, a lot of the time, what I'm doing is I'm talking about the physical. I'm beating the guys down. And a lot of the guys is like, oh gosh, my sugar good. I find like every time I test my sugar, it always going good and all kind of thing. But there's also a psychological aspect to it, right? And the psychological aspect applies especially to younger men, because you made an excellent point in terms of the type 1 diabetic. Now, the type 1 diabetic doesn't really have much choice. That is genetic. That is genetic. They were born with it and that was it. But the type 2 diabetic, that's almost recent studies have been showing that certain things may not necessarily be lifestyle, but by and large, the general thinking always used to be that type 2 diabetic was a lifestyle choice. So can you imagine if you are 31 years old and you have just been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes? You are not going to be very happy about that. And it's not going to translate very positively into the bedroom. Because you, at the age of 30s, let's say, you're not going to exactly want to do anything because they're like, oh my goodness, I'm diseased, right? And this does actually lead to a loss of libido. You have no physical problems. You're totally okay to do everything. Like, you're fine. But things just gotta go up because it's all in your mind. And then it goes the other way, where let's say you're not 30, you're about 70, and you're a little bit older, and wifey dead and all kind of thing, and you're ready to organize yourself again, but then you're worried because, oh gosh, that could start up again, boy. Right? I was saying some stuff in the background.
No, 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 no. Not on my end.
All right. Yeah. So it does lead to a little bit of psychological issues, both on the younger end and on the older end. Right? But what I would say is, especially for the younger guys, because I think this would really affect people, let's say maybe about 70 or younger, measure your HbA1c. All right, your HbA1c, right? Whether you go to the health center, whether you go to the hospital clinic, whether you go to your private doctor, whoever you go to, ask them about your HbA1c, right? That is the measure of your average glucose levels over the past 3 months, and you do not need to fast for that reading, right? So less than 5.6, you're not diabetic. Between 5.6 and 6.4 is what we call impaired glucose tolerance. Now, long time they used to call that pre-diabetes, and they used to say you gotta watch what you eat and you this and you that. We call it impaired glucose tolerance. You still had to watch what you eat and that, but impaired glucose tolerance. If you're above 6.4, you're full out diabetic and you should be treated unless they have extenuating circumstances. Especially like if you're about 85 years old, I will accept about 7 is all right. Because, yeah, a little old auntie is all right. Yeah, a little old uncle is all right. If your HbA1c is about 6.4 and you don't want to take that big hard white tablet called metformin or glucophage or however you want to call it, right? Because it's big and hard and it's go down like a cricks. Lifestyle, make your 7,000 steps every day. Make your 7,000 steps every day. Show your doctor that you know what you're doing. You lose your 20 pounds. Make your 7,000 steps. Medications. Take a tablet. Don't mind. It might be causing you stomach problem, diarrhea, everything like that. Take it. Because here what? Push come to shove is either you lose a foot or you live your whole healthy life with your 2 foot and diarrhea. Because at the end of the day, diabetes could definitely be reversed. Right? And I'm telling you all that as a medical professional, diabetes could definitely be reversed. I am not saying that diabetes could be cured. Do not listen to all them other people on the outside who giving all them bush tea to drink and all kind of thing. Diabetes cannot be cured, but it could be reversed. All right. And again, like I said, you use complex carbohydrates. The same thing your mom and your grandmom used to do. All them yam, dasheen, potato, eddos, all them kind of thing. People these days, they just want the KFC and fries. And they want, what is this place? Starbucks and rituals and all kind of thing. No, that have too much sugar in it. Don't do that. Make your own juice. Squeeze the orange yourself. Add your own little sugar if you have to. right? But I really prefer if you do add any sugar to your own normal juice. You have a blender. Everybody have a pasteurizer in their home. Blend up some apple and orange and grapefruit and thing, right? Do fry up the foods. You gotta steam it. You gotta grill the food. I don't know when last anybody used the oven anymore except to bake macaroni pie, but bake the fish. It just tastes good. Use the olive oil. Use the avocado oil. This avocado, yeah. This avocado good. Right? And when you want a snack, don't be going by the cheesies and all kind of thing. Right? Actually, to be honest with you, fried chana is actually a very good thing because it is actually a bean. You need to snack on greens, nuts, beans, and all kind of thing, right? But ideally speaking, all you need to do is just roast it, and then you put it in your hand, divide it in half in the morning, half in the evening. And that's all you need. Trinidadians eat way too much food for their body type. That's why we like bubble ups, people. And in terms of the exercise, like I said before, 7,000 steps every day. Try to see if either you could get a watch or an app on your phone, right? You don't need to run a marathon. You really don't need to run a marathon. You take it one step at a time. Every single step counts. All right, 7,000 steps from the moment you wake up in the morning to the moment you go to bed at night. 7,000 steps every day at your own pace. Simple changes. You pack up far, you use the stairs. Instead of using the WhatsApp, instead of calling people, you walk to deliver your message. 5%. Let's say you were weighing 200 pounds. 5% of 200 pounds is what? 20? If you weigh 180 pounds, you know how easier that is? 180 from 200. You know how easier that is? And then what you could do is you add a little bit of light strength training. And you don't need to join a gym for that. You really don't. What I used to do personally, right? So personally, I'm not advocating this, but just personally, I used to fill the bleach bottle with water and just lift the bleach bottle. That used to work for me. So after all the lifestyle exercise and diet and everything like that, all you're going and say, well, doc, all you tell me about tablet. Why I taking my tablet for? And them tablet and them do work, doc, them tablet and them big like a crick, all kind of thing. Take your tablet. Because guess what? I have actually looked at, oh gosh, I'm looking like a TikTok here. I have looked at about 15 different studies, right, that actually has shown that every single medication that has been used to treat diabetes, they do not have any impact or they don't have a negative impact on sexual dysfunction. They actually, some of them actually might actually positively impact sexual dysfunction. Right? And we're going to go into great details. The big one was the big orange tablet, atenolol, right? A lot of people used to take that orange tablet a long time, right? And it was previously commonly used, but it is not a first-line treatment for blood pressure anymore. If it is that you have high blood pressure and your doctor putting you on that still, is either it real working or your doctor don't like you. But it didn't have as much of an impact as other medications on performance. And then we have other medications that could kind of be a little bit better, right? Especially lifestyle. Like I said, I mean, come on. The average Trinidadian going to be drinking, smoking, this, that, stop drinking, stop smoking, lose weight, all these kind of things, right? This is a slide that actually was supposed to be a little bit higher. Sorry about that, right? Now we're going into the helpers, the guys that help out. Any questions, Mr. Ali, sir, by the way?
No, we're going good. I don't wanna
Yeah,
just steal the flow, and
this
I'm
is a
learning a lot.
beautiful lecture. Go ahead now.
All right. So we're going into the helpers, right? Which is, the little blue pill, right? Now, the people on them, I don't have no sponsors, right? So it's called sildenafil, right? But we all know is a little blue pill. It's shaped like a little diamond, right? It helps. It does help, right? And I mean, if it is anticipating something, right? It might do something. Might. No guarantees. It might. But the thing is that it doesn't work on the mind. So you could take it, and if your mind doesn't want it to happen, it doesn't happen. So you have to make sure that you actually ready for it to happen. And is not recommended for long-term use. That's why, those medications, they had this fella who was smiling and playing golf and thinking, this is Bob, and Bob is that, right? Yeah, Bob, if it's more than 4 hours, well, hard luck, right? Needles going inside certain places and it's not nice, right? We've had to do that in casualty before and it's not nice. So really, really get that prescribed by a doctor, not just any random person. And also, if you do have a history of heart problems, it's probably not wise to take it because your blood pressure could go so low that you'll be enjoying yourself, but you'll never wake up from it. I'll just leave it at that. Also, words of warning, because they do exist. And unfortunately, in Trinidad and Tobago, there is the Medical Board of Trinidad and Tobago that exists, but they don't exactly govern whether you can call yourself a doctor or not. So there are people who call themselves doctors who may not have had a medical degree. And a lot of these doctors are involved in testosterone injections. And you might find that things aren't working out for you. And you might find that, okay, you've been married about 2-3 years now, and the wife not getting pregnant or whatever, and you want to go by, I don't want to call names, Dr. Love Doctor. You want to go by the Love Doctor. Anyway, right? And he will inject you with some solution, which is testosterone, and tell you, well, yes, your testosterone gonna be big, everything gonna be good, and everything gonna be good, and yeah, you're gonna find that you're gonna have some good things for the next 2-3 weeks, but no, it don't work so. Life don't work so. God didn't make it to work so, right? And it not with it, because those children going to end up not. Let me just leave it at that. All right. Please do not go to doctors who administer any sort of exogenous testosterone injections. If you need, you really think that you need a testosterone injection, discuss it with a properly licensed physician, ideally an endocrine doctor, not even a general practitioner. You need to be referred to an endocrine doctor because these things are very, very important. Is the testosterone that they inject in you is not the testosterone that people want to build muscles and everything. These are different testosterone and they could kill your life. All right? Please don't do that, even though they have a doctor in front of their name. Unfortunately, we don't have a big thing between that. Yeah? Hello?
We are
We
here.
hear. So you're saying that those bush doctors out there that uh, advise us to take certain things, that sort of advice isn't and may not be in keeping with what registered medical practitioners administer, and therefore we could be killing ourselves in more ways than one in turning to the bush doctor, the herbalist.
Correct. No, there's a big thing, especially with TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Facebook and everything like that, where people swear by certain cures or whatever like that, right? However, it may or may not work, right? I'm not decrying it, but there needs to be actual proper studies before we can say that it works. There's something called a double-blind randomized control trial.
Wow. So when you're in Tobago, I'm just being the devil's advocate here, right? When you're in Tobago and people stop you to sell you Baba and the herbalists want to put you on something and everybody have some formula, right? These things, it's a definite no-no.
So last time I was in Tobago, I was 10 years old, so I can't say anything. But I mean, if you want to try, that's up at your own risk.
But I think the public needs to be fully aware of what is being pushed up on it or tossed on them on a day-to-day basis.
What I would say, what I would say is that if there's any sort of thing being pushed on you as a cure or as a treatment for anything, you need to be able to ask the individual who is selling you, pharmacist, doctor, uh, bushman, anything like that, right? You need to be able to ask them, well, what is the evidence behind this? How do I know this is going to help me? Did they try this on 1,000 people and 800 people got better? Or 900 people got better? Where is the evidence?
So the love doctor out there, without calling names, when he does his TikTok and he's advising to do this and to do that, but it's always advised to call him. Even that, the individuals of that ilk, they should be avoided and or questioned as to what is the chances of success, meaning what is their strike rate, if I may put it that way.
Right. So I'm not sure exactly what his success rate is or how many people he has paid to say that they've been successful. Because guess what? If you put 20 marbles, you're going to pull a red marble at some point, right? So somebody going to have a success. And that's the one that they're going to rate up. Oh my goodness, that's the one, that's the red marble, that's this, that's that. So that's the successful one, and that's the one that they're going to advertise. Yeah, I did this, I did that, but there was 19 other people.
Right. So your advice is we need to not just see, or perhaps visit an endocrine doctor or a doctor who specializes in that area, as opposed to not even a GP.
Well, what I would say is visit your GP, control your diabetes, If your GP cannot control your diabetes, visit an endocrine doctor. And from the endocrine doctor, we will see if there's anything further that we could do, because I work with an endocrine doctor and I've seen a lot of different things. And trust me, I have seen. So, like I said, normal HbA1c, if you're not diabetic, is less than 5.6. I've seen people who were like 15, 16, and within, I don't know, about 4 months, they were down to about 7, right? Just by diet and exercise and taking the medications. So, I mean, just by being informed and taking and complying and everything like that, you don't need these herbal nonsense. And the guy lost up like over 100 pounds, and he didn't need herbs.
You know, there's a trend of thought, and when I say a trend of thought, this is not self-thinking. There are people out there, not just the herbalists, who encourage you that pharmaceutical drugs are all geared towards promoting an industry. That's their standard is we got to make money, we got to keep everybody in pharmaceutical drugs, we got to keep the scare tactics up there, and then they serve you that they're trying to keep you away from natural foods and natural remedies and natural cures that the herbalist wants you on. That is not going to cost much money.
Right. And I understand that. And yet you see these people on TikTok taking about 15 different supplements every day. So they're still taking tablets. So who's making the money? Not the drug companies. They still take their supplements. I've seen them, and they say all like, I don't need tablets for eczema, I don't need tablets for my Crohn's disease, I don't need tablets for my asthma, I don't need this and I would need that, and they take 8 tablets every single day. So who wins in the end? Right? It's not about winning or losing. It's about getting you better. We are doctors. If we need to give you a medication, we will give you the medication. I'm sorry if it costs a lot of money, but unfortunately, that is the medication that I need you to be on for you to get better.
I follow you. So in reality, one should have a medical practitioner that one sees that they feel comfortable with, so they can share what the problems are. They feel comfortable enough to confide in that doctor as to exactly what their peculiar conditions are and their symptoms are and so on. I would imagine we're back to that family doctor thing where we need to develop a relationship with a practitioner that we trust.
Yes, because back in the days, family doctors almost used to be like a little uncle or auntie if it was a female doctor. You know, I mean, like if the person passed away, they was invited to the wake and everything. Like my doctor was invited to my grandfather's wake. You know, right? And then another thing that you would have mentioned, I mean, like, is really not an issue. What we will do, we don't want to overcharge you, you know. We will give you the cheapest medications we could give you. We not making money off the drug companies. The drug companies don't pay us. You just give us our money and we good. We don't get anything from the drug companies except maybe a little pen or something. All right, we don't get anything from them.
I know this may be slightly off, but it could tie into what we're saying. The generic drugs, and I'm just using that word because that the word generic drugs is in the public space, right? They tell you that you could buy the expensive one, but there's the product that is not. Let me use Rogaine as an example, right? I'm using
Rogaine. Well, we both bald heads. So.
They tell you if you can't afford the Rogaine at $50 US, you can get the generic drug for $20.
Right.
So I guess if we use that parallel for whatever the medication that may be required from the endocrine endocrinologist. I'm perhaps creating a word there.
Okay, so let me put it in terms of maths, right? You know about maths and thing, right? Because you seem like an intelligent guy, right? Simple maths, right? And you have x plus 5 equal 10, right? So what is x? Not 5?
Exactly.
Right.
That's simple.
Right? Because you throw away the 5 and x equal 5, right? Now you have x plus 2 equal 10. Where is x? Not 8?
Yeah.
Right. So the difference between the 5 and the 8 is that the x is the same thing. Same medication, it's just that they have a 5 and a 8. Right? It works the same way, it's just one might work from a 5 and one might work from a 8.
So we should trust the generic. We should trust the drug that is made.
Believe you me,
in that third world country.
I have prescribed generics to my patients that I know work better than the brand name. Personally speaking.
To be quite frank with you, I accept what you're saying. You're the expert here. I've also heard the opposite. I've heard doctors encouraging you not to take the generic.
Right? No, there are certain medications where you want the brand name. There are certain medications where you absolutely want and need the brand name. But there are also other medications where the generic might even work better and cheaper. $100, $200 cheaper for somebody who's on pension, somebody who's 70 years old. How can you really justify prescribing a medication that is $200 more for this little old lady or this little old guy who's coming to you, whereas they could get it for $200 cheaper?
Well, I would imagine that a lot of people out there are afraid of doctors and afraid of the treatment because doctors may not communicate in the way that you do. When you go to a doctor, sometimes I don't want to be knocking doctors, right? But sometimes
I understand.
Let's talk about professionals generally. Professionals believe that the less you educate the public and the more you have the public in a state of fear, then the public believes that you're a magician, and to get that magic, you have to spend your money.
No, but there's a way. So also on TikTok again, we going on TikTok, even though TikTok banned in America these days, but even on TikTok, there was a whole trend of magicians revealing how they do the tricks, and still you don't know how they do it. And that's what I do, right? I tell you, I explain to you exactly what I'm doing. And at the end of my visit, or at the end of any proper doctor's visit, you are going to feel satisfied, but at the same time, you're still going to be almost in awe, like, oh my goodness, that really is a doctor. I can't do what a doctor do. But he talked to me just like I was right on he level.
No, I agree with you. Some people appreciate dialogue and they appreciate information, and it's like it's a service, and the levels of comfort that you feel as a patient, you feel more inclined to be honest with the doctor because he being straight with you, so you being straight with him.
Doc, tell me something as we're on this topic here. There were times when I took people to the hospital and stuff, even when I went for certain checkups and things, where instead of the doctor seeing the patient personally, he'll have an intern chat with the person, and the intern will take some notes and go to the doctor. How practical that can be.
Right. Okay. So interns are actually doctors as well. They have passed all of their exams. However, interns are not exactly, they're like almost there. They're like about 90% there. So they do need to review everything with a senior doctor.
Okay.
Right. And they are excellent doctors, because as an intern, I used to be doing like everything. Right. But I was back in 2011. That's like, I don't know, about 14 years from now. I don't know. That was about 3 solar eclipses ago. Right?
I had to come see. I like how you down to earth with your language. Tell me something too, Doc. I want to add some questions in the end of the program here. Where do vegetarians, people who not even full vegetarians, people who eat meat off and on, but they're more on vegetables, what are their chances? What the chances are of they contracting diabetes? Because diabetes is a spawning ground.
All right. So, I mean, Doubles is vegetarian, and
Hmm.
if he eat doubles every day, ain't you going to get sugar?
Furry loves doubles.
I eat
Doubles vegetarian. If he eat doubles every day, you're going to get sugar?
Yes.
So, I mean, there isn't diabetes, unfortunately, isn't a sort of a discriminator. Unfortunately, because the indentured laborers and the uh, I don't know if I want to trigger anybody, but the African slaves and everything, they came across, and we make all the coolie and all them people, right?
Mm-hmm.
They did all the thing, and they make them Madras Indian, and they do this and they do that and whatever. All that Trinidadian mix up right now,
Mm-hmm.
and all that Trinidadian at risk of diabetes. That is why Trinidadians really cannot have big belly, because if Trinidadians have a belly even slightly out of line, they are at risk for diabetes. So Farid can't eat no more doubles.
I can eat 4 a day. And I,
Eat about one now.
But there are people who I know people who are diabetic, and sometimes I take mangoes to them and they'll say no, I cannot have mangoes.
Right. So in terms of fruit, what you're allowed is about 1.5 servings of fruit a day. So if you have mangoes, you're allowed like a little bit of fruit in the morning, a little bit of fruit in the afternoon, kind of like as a snack, along with some nuts. So cashews, almonds, not peanuts. Peanuts have too much fat in them. Cashews, almonds, walnuts, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And a handful, like I said, you divide that in half in the morning, half in the evening, along with the fruit, you're good to go.
Okay.
And no sugar when you're squeezing your fruit.
Okay. What's your take on there are some kernels that I eat. They say you don't eat more than 3 per day. It's apricot kernels. What's your rating if you have any knowledge about that? Because I eat them every day. I eat 3 a day.
Apricot kernels.
It's fully loaded with B17 vitamins.
Not too sure about apricot kernels, but what I would say is just Google apricot and cyanide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I know that. I think that's where the warning comes in.
Yeah. So I would just say Google that and not overdo it. Right?
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I actually not just a doctor. I know a lot of random facts. So.
Mm-hmm. I've realized that. That's why I decided to ask you certain questions now. And where the supplements are concerned, there are some guys who feel that if they supplement, they could hide from their doctor.
No, you really can't hide, because a lot of those supplements will put a lot of pressure on your kidneys.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's potassium. There's this prime thing from Logan Paul or some kind of Paul fella he named that is cost about $20-something in his store. It have too much potassium in it. If you have kidney problems, you cannot have that, right? I always say, if it is dehydrated, the best thing to drink is coconut water. If you have no kidney problems, if you have no medical problems, no heart problems, no blood pressure, no blood sugar, nothing like that, just drink coconut water. That is the best hydration ever, and it's totally free in Trinidad, almost.
Yes. Wow. You said a mouthful today.
It's interesting that you mentioned the word that there's almost like a multidisciplinary approach to some of the conditions and the dysfunctions that we have.
Of course it is.
So it's not just your sugar intake. Your sugar intake is a huge deal, but it's also as Trinidadians, we have such bad diets, bad food intake
Yeah,
generally.
I mean, look. Um, so sorry to cut you off, but I mean, just an observation, right? They raise KFC price, people vex. They put back the ketchup and mustard and pepper so that people could do it, and people went back by KFC. But KFC not nice. KFC's are such a fat.
But it smell good. That's not
Well,
some.
well, well.
I mean, sometimes it's not that I want to eat it, but I get the smell and the smell triggers something in my head, and then I get hooked.
That's your primal scent.
Ew. Oh boy, boy. Added to the KFC fatty is the oil that they fry it in responsible for the fat intake or inputs.
Right. So I mean, if you're drinking a gallon of fat every day, that's your problem. But a little bit of something not really going to do too much. Just don't do it every day.
Right, right. Yeah. Hmm. Because these days it seems as though processed foods and these fast food outlets rule supreme because the young people they don't want to spend no time in the kitchen. They seem that they're
Yeah.
busy.
Well, what I say is the young people and them they go rotten about 3,000 years like mommy after because they're so preserved.
The
But
cholesterol issues that you speak of, because we're back to that area where you're saying it's we have, well, a multiplicity of problems. When we
yes,
have this cholesterol issue that could lead to the dysfunction,
correct.
because I mean, essentially we're talking about, I mean,
Right.
the
So
impotency.
cholesterol issues in particular, that's actually one of the hardest things to treat, because cholesterol, your body actually makes all the cholesterol that you need. It's so weird. Your cholesterol is essential for the normal function of the body. Every single body cell, except maybe one or two cells, needs cholesterol as part of the wall or the membrane of the cell. Right? So your liver actually produces all the cholesterol that it needs. If you take in extra cholesterol, your body just kind of like, all right, no problem, pass out. But some people have a genetic predisposition to produce extra cholesterol. And it isn't related to diet. They could eat like a rabbit. Right? You know the tortoise and the hare? They could eat like the tortoise and the hare, eating leaf all the time. Their cholesterol still high. It happens, and they need to be on medications. And unfortunately, I know a lot of Trinidadians do like medications, but unfortunately, that's how it is. A lot of our population have high cholesterol just due to genetics, and they need to be on medication because you put plaques in your arteries, you clog up your arteries, you get a heart attack, you end up with triple bypass, you end up this, you end up that, and then you're dead at 50, and then you leave all your money behind for all your children. So if you like your children, I mean, you could do that.
The thing with cholesterol is the doctors recommend drugs, and again, it's an expense issue.
Right. So
Then they say to you, no, it's a two-pronged question. Then they say to you that these drugs, you can't take this, you can't go on regular rounds of this. He has to guide you because it can damage your liver. So some of the medication, all is like you're taking as we say in inverted commas, a dangerous drug that the doctor needs to guide you through the use of the take. I'm saying that I'm asking the question purely on the basis of you have high cholesterol, you have all these other problems, you're there already. And so many people out there already in a predicament. So how do you treat with? Is there another way of treating with the cholesterol to avoid going on these dangerous drugs?
right. So I'll answer that question with an observation. So the observation is that Classically, and by classically I mean 25 years ago and beforehand, the most common cause of liver failure was hepatitis, right? Hepatitis A, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, right? Within the past 25 years, you know what's rapidly overcoming hepatitis as the most common cause of liver failure? Fatty liver disease from cholesterol, from having diabetes, from having high cholesterol, from having this. I talking about they have done liver transplants in the United States. We don't do liver transplants in Trinidad yet. They have done liver transplants in the United States just for fatty liver disease. Right? We don't want ever for that to happen in our population. We need to take in front before in front take we. Right? I don't know if you realize that I grew up with the local slang, but yeah,
Yeah.
we don't want to take in front before in front take we, right? I want to make sure, right? Now the medications, the statins, right? And a lot of the patients and them, they always complain about the statins. That is the liver and they get in body pains and the this and the that. The statins actually have a less than 0.05% of causing these symptoms that they are causing, that they are reporting, sorry. So it's all up here. Or it might be something else. It might be because we're telling them to exercise more that they get in body pain. It might be because we're telling them to eat a little bit more bhaji, that the liver actually have something to process. You know? So a less than 0.05%, that's what, 5 in 1,000. Right? And the one that we might catch, yes, we will stop it immediately. We wouldn't continue it. We're not evil. Doctors are not evil. Right? And I want people to understand that doctors are not evil. We just want the best for you.
Doc should I mean, there are lots of people who are listening, and I'm sure they're quite comfortable with the language you use, because some doctors, they talk in a sort of intellectual, academic kind of way that the people who are listening get lost. They'll just say, "Well, I remember he said this," but the way you diverse your, and disperse your information, I think a lot of people will be comfortable with it. How can you be reached, or maybe you should let people know how to contact you? I see Farid sent me something here, but I'm searching to see a telephone number or a contact number. But it just looked like a promo for some discussion.
All
Or
right.
yeah.
So, well, yeah, I do have a WhatsApp number. I would prefer if you WhatsApp and not call me, because I'm not sure whether I will be busy or not, but it is 703 0027.
Great.
All right, and Dr. Cupido, like Cupid with the bow and arrow, and then ORE on the end.
Uh, I really like the way you are passing out your information, and I think that's the way a lot of people can connect with you. Because, like I said, sometimes it's too much academia. Too much.
I grew up very, very simple, sir, and I always display my information very, very simple, because I don't know any other way to do it.
Great. I'm happy that you came on today, and I'm so I was really amazed at some of the information you dispensed today, because we don't get it like that. Sometimes you go to see a practitioner, and to me they're just interested in what you pay to see them.
No, I have nothing like that. You come for a problem, I need to hear your problem, and then I will sort you out, and then we will decide how much you pay.
Great. That sounds even better. Yes, I want to thank you personally for being on the show, and I'm happy that Farid brought you on, because I think a lot
Thanks for Farid, man.
a lot need to be known to the people who really want that kind of help and who are probably too shy or afraid to let that kind of information out.
Yeah, just by all means, if one last thing I would like to say, please, if you trust your doctor, tell your doctor what is going on with you. Your doctor will be more than willing to help you out.
I'm so happy for that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cupido. It's a pleasure hearing from you and learning from you. The information is helpful, hopefully, and I know you will. We'll invite you again, and hopefully
Sure, man.
you come
Happy
and
to
check.
be back.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your evening, and thank you for your time and your warmth.
All right, man. Take care.
Enjoy
Okay.
it. Thank you.
It's been
To
a
the
pleasure.
listening public, we've had Dr. Ryan Cupido sharing with us his knowledge and his wisdom in relation to diabetes and its functions and its dysfunctions and the effects it may have on us. David, it's all in your hands now. Thank you for your time, and
Yes.
be safe out there. Enjoy your journey back to Deep South.
Yes. And please keep off the doubles.
I'll try. I can't promise, but I'll try. But after this discussion, I'm closer to doing so than before.
Yes. Thank you so much. That's it for today's edition of Hard Talk. We had Farid on today, seeing that yesterday was Eid, a public holiday. So Farid will be back next Wednesday in his usual position for Hard Talk right here at Power 102 Digital. We got news straight ahead.
The future of talk is here. Power